So one of the things I said to myself when I quit my job to become a remote worker and try and experience some of the world was to gain some practical wisdom. And for anyone who knows the breathing industry or has been in the breathing industry, they've heard of a guy called Brian Mackenzie. Brian Mackenzie is one of the founders of Shift Adapt and the Health and Human Health and Performance Foundation, who look at breath as a means for performance, but also looking at health as well. And he's a guy who's been in the industry for maybe 10 or so years, even longer, I believe. And I took something away from what he said a little while ago. And one of my friend's fathers, years back, said, if you ever want to learn something, you either go to the best university to study that, or you go to the best place to study that. His son went to New Zealand to learn rugby and became an England international in rugby and went on to become a captain. Now Brian Mackenzie says if you want to learn about breathing, you go to the Freedivers. So that's what I did. My first island that I stopped on was Nusa Penida in Bali, Indonesia. And I had the opportunity to sit down with Kirill from Freedive Nusa. He's an instructor, he's been a yogi for many years, and he's been now in the freedive industry for, I believe, over 7 years. And in this interview, we delved into all topics in terms of what we can do for breathing, how to settle the mind, advanced freediving, the stages you can go through, but some of the things that came up are very, very relevant for everyday life. Things like becoming an observer of the mind, things like keeping your body healthy, the difference between pain and suffering. All these things are transferable. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. It was awesome to go and do some yoga and go to do some high intensity workouts and to sit down with Kirill and really pick his brains. So I hope you enjoyed this, and if you do enjoy, make sure you subscribe below, and thank you very much. Okay, Kirill, thank you very much. This is actually going to be episode 51 of the Performance Through Health podcast, and this is something special. It's the first one outdoors, first one in Indonesia, and I get the pleasure to speak to yourself about freediving, your journey, delving into a bit of breath and some of the concepts that you use here as freedivers to perhaps learn from you to push that into what I do online with helping people with stress and anxiety. So first, just give a bit of your background and maybe some of your story, where you grew up, how you got into yoga, because we've done some fantastic yoga this morning that I've got some questions on, and then moving on into how you went, that led into freediving.
Okay, so my name is Kirill, and I was born in South Russia between two seas, the Caspian Sea and the Black Sea, but I couldn't swim. Until I started freediving, I couldn't swim. And it's funny, I was grown up in semi-desert and it was no possibility to swim, and I got my master's degree there, and then I moved to St. Petersburg, and from 2006 I started to live in St. Petersburg, and then because I was computer engineer, in 2010, me and my wife, we started to live in Asia, and I was working remotely. At that time it was not so popular as now. It was no definition like digital nomad.
So how many years ago was this now?
This year will be 12, at the end of this year will be 12 years.
So one of the pioneers of remote workers.
Yeah, one of the first digital nomads.
Yeah.
So our first country was Thailand, and in end of 2011, I just watched some video on YouTube about freediving. Probably first video was Free Fall by Guillaume Nery, one of the most popular video, and I know few other freedivers who started freediving after that video. So for me, it changed everything for sure. And I moved to Koh Tao, this is a small island in Thailand, for my first freediving course. It was in January 2012. And then I was falling in love in freediving, and actually before I was not sport person and not so fit person, let's say. I was typical computer engineer, typical nerd.
Yep.
Who was hated people, who was liking on the computers and so on. And then freediving, I can tell that freediving completely changed my life. So I started to do yoga, I started to do swimming. As I told, when I started freediving, I couldn't really swim. Like I maybe could swim 50 meters and then died. But 2 years after, I participated in 5 kilometers open water swim and took second place there.
Oh, wow.
And it was very surprised for everyone. It was in cold water in North Russia. But
How cold are we talking there?
it was about 16 or 17 degrees.
Oh.
The temperature of water, but we used the wetsuit.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And also with freediving, I started to practice yoga first time. I tried some yoga before, but it was not regular. But at the end of 2012, we were living in Dahab in Egypt, and I was participated my first Ashtanga yoga seminar, and it was very hard actually. For 1 week after, it was pain everywhere. It was like terrible, painful, and so on. But we liked it a lot, and we started to practice Ashtanga. So since 2012 or 2013, I am practicing Ashtanga Vinyasa for myself. And a couple of years ago, I also became officially a yoga teacher. But I don't position myself as yoga teacher, but we use yoga as a tool for freedivers, and we do practicing here yoga, but I don't really teach a lot, separate yoga classes.
Yeah, okay. So what was it, you said that when you first started doing freediving, you fell in love with it. What was it that stood out to you to make you go into that avenue, coming from someone who wasn't, as you just said, an athletic individual? All of a sudden it just set off a spark. What would you say freediving means to you, and why was that the reason you went down it?
Actually, when I started freediving, I already did some scuba diving, and I liked scuba diving. But what I didn't like, it was not enough freedom for me, let's say, the equipment and so on. And I didn't have any fears connected to the water, so it was easy for me. The main limitation for me was my performance, because as I told, I was not fit person. So my first level and my second level, they were quite easy. But when I started my master course, this is 1 month internship, it was really hard. It was one of the hardest experiences in my life, probably. My body was destroyed. Every evening when I came back home after the training day, I had almost fever. I couldn't sleep.
Really?
And at the same time, I had remote job, so I had to work. And it was, in first 2 weeks, I lost about 10 kilos. And when my wife came to visit me, she was very surprised, like, what happened? She couldn't recognize me.
So this was your freedive masters?
Yeah, it was my master course.
Okay.
Master course. But when I started, what I really liked, usually when I tell about freediving, I tell about 2 sides of freediving. Let's say, one side, I call it inner freediving. This is your personal experience which you have. For example, when you do line training, we see nothing. You see on the rope going one way and then going other way.
Yeah.
You see just the blue and nothing else. But these feelings which you have and this experience which you have underwater, it is very valuable. And I personally dive not for numbers. I'm not a competitor. I dive for this experience.
Yeah.
I dive for these feelings and for that silence which you can find at the depth. And this is what makes freediving very connected to all kind of mind practices, like meditation, yoga nidra, or whatever. So, and I started to practice meditation as well after freediving. I'm practicing Vipassana meditation, which also kind of form of hard meditation. And the other side of freediving, when you explore something outside, this is what makes it related to scuba diving. When you go and you look to the manta rays, turtles, the fishes, and so on. And usually people think about this part and they compare free diving with scuba diving.
Yeah.
And scuba divers quite often they like to tell like, why you need free diving? I can take 10 and I can spend 1 hour under the water. It doesn't make sense to do it on breath hold and so on. And it's true, I still like scuba diving and sometimes I do it. But the time, it has different value. Sometimes 1 minute can be more valuable than 1 hour. And with free diving, of course, we spend less time under the water, but this time it's very valuable. And also we have much more freedom and you can interact with underwater life. You're not something, you're not alien for underwater creatures, and they can allow you to come much closer. You can swim together with manta rays. They're not scared by you. So it gives a lot of freedom. Let's say if we speak about Nusa Penida, people come here to dive with manta rays, and this is one of the highlights of Nusa Penida. But for me, to dive with manta rays with scuba, it is really boring. Even I like scuba, because you just sit and you do nothing. You just watching them, how they swim around. When you do it on free diving, you can swim together. You can feel their movement. You have have much more freedom, and it is much more interesting.
There's more of a connection to it because it's
connection. You can really feel this movement. You can swim with them together. You can move in any direction. So when people usually ask me, again, I like scuba, and in some cases, like to see mola, you have to use scuba.
Yeah.
But when people ask me about manta rays, I told them, even they don't do free diving yet, go and do snorkeling. You will have more freedom because you can move. Especially if you are going to Manta Bay, for example, they are always moving. They're not in Manta Point. They're connected and they stay close to. They stay around the cleaning
area, steam stations.
In Manta Bay, they're always moving. It's clean area, and you cannot follow them with scuba. It's just impossible.
Yeah. Yesterday, was it yesterday? Then the day before, sorry, I went out spearfishing with Arthur, and as I was diving, because I'd just done my advanced scuba diving course, so I'd done 9 dives with a tank on my back, and pretty much all I can notice is my breath, like how much I'm breathing. But then when you go down, when you dive, when you've got no breath, there is like that eeriness of the silence, and it was beautiful just to be able to hear the fizzing of the ocean and just the things around the ocean. There was one point where I couldn't equalize, and I ended up blowing my sinuses in my ear. But what I noticed and was really surprised about is when I was watching the fish and I was trying to equalize, when my ear popped and eventually did equalize, all the fish jumped. It was like they could hear the pressure change.
They can hear the sound.
Yeah. And I was like, what? That was like I thought that was just something in my ear, and they all would like looked at me like, like, you okay? I had to come up. Unfortunately, my nose started bleeding, so I didn't dive down again, and I'm still a bit blocked in this ear now. But so I struggled with the equalization. That's something I probably should have come and learnt to do before I went out spearfishing.
Equalization is one of the main issues, and a lot of difficulties happen like this. Connected to equalization.
Yeah. So we've spoke before about free diving, and you believe that majority of people can dive up to 20 or 30 meters without any kind of advanced training. It's more just learning to relax. So what sort of things would you teach people to get them to the point where they're able to relax enough to hold their breath for long enough to get to 20, 30 meters?
Well, actually, always the education starting from knowledge, and most of the fears and most of the doubts, they are coming from unknowing or from some misunderstanding. And when people know the proper knowledge, most of the fears already disappear. They know how their body working, how to breathe properly, what exactly happens when they hold the breath. They are not dying, even they have very strong urge to breathe. They're still not dying, they still have a lot of oxygen and so on, and it helps already a lot. And then let's say next stage, it will be about real experience. We always start from static apnea, when you hold the breath without moving. And this is the foundation and the basic. When you apply your new skills, how to breathe before the dive and how to breathe after the dive.
Yep.
You can apply it in the pool, and you can try to be relaxed without moving,
Yep.
without any
Tension in
kind
your
of
body.
consumption of the
Yeah,
oxygen.
yeah.
But at the same time, on one hand, it is very basic discipline in freediving. On the other hand, it is one of the most difficult mentally.
Yeah.
Because in other disciplines, you can be focused on technique, on equalization, on different stuff. In static, you have to be dead. You have to die, and you have to switch off the mind.
Yeah.
And it is very difficult for many people because we have small monkey in the head, which is always speaking with us.
Yeah.
What are you doing here? You're killing yourself, and so on. And it's interesting to meet this monkey and to find some agreement, to find how to calm it down. So I like static. And,
Yeah.
But I know a lot of people who can dive really deep and who has a very good performance for deep diving or for dynamic, but they hate static.
Yeah.
Because of this like sticking in the
The
head, and they get
concern.
bored, just lay and do nothing.
It becomes a distraction. If you've actually got something to do, you sort of a sudden you no longer have to just fully focus on the mind. It's interesting because I use breath holds in some of the techniques that I do in my stress and anxiety program, and I think one of the biggest fears that as a humans we have, or the innate fears we have, is the innate fear of suffocation, right? So if we can put people into a position where they're holding the breath, just even laying in their bed relaxing, but you get them to keep holding it so they feel that urge of they're suffocating, but then try and stay calm in the mind, it creates that like the psychophysiological change, the dynamic in terms of I guess it's the knowledge that you're gaining from the fact that actually you can suffer to a certain extent and still be fine and come out okay at the end of it. And I think that's the experience of, I guess, diving is exactly the same thing. Whereas when I was diving yesterday, I knew that when I was at 7 or 8 meters, I was holding my breath, started to feel the diaphragmatic contractions come on, and I'm like, okay, well, now it's time to come up. But then when I finally got to the top, I wasn't really gasping for breath. It wasn't like you would after 30 minutes of Insanity X. I noticed that I probably could have held my breath for a little bit longer. And I think that is it the experience of just continually diving that you just learn to say, hey, actually my body can do more than that, or the mind allows you to then take a step further with your body.
Yeah, of course. Actually, there are, again, like two sides here. One thing, with some experience, your diaphragm become more flexible, your intercostal muscles become more flexible, and it becomes not so painful. You can even start, at some point, you even start to enjoy your contractions.
Oh, really?
They become softer. We do a lot of exercises, a lot of stretching for diaphragm, and at some point you really enjoy it. Like, wow, today I have very gentle contractions, and so nice. So even this discomfort, you can find something pleasant. Of course, at some point it will be not enjoyable anymore. It will be painful and so on. But you can really expand your ability to hold the breath with training, and this is what we are doing. And the other side, it's about mental. Again, it's connected to your mental state. There is difference between pain and suffering. When you just have pain, let's say you cut your finger, you can absorb the pain. Okay, I have the pain, I need to do something, I need to treat myself or whatever. Or you can involve your mind and you start to suffer. You start to like feel this pain, like I'm dying, I'm bleeding, or whatever. And when you start to connect your mind to physical sensations, it becomes much harder, and this is the real suffer.
Yeah.
So the idea again, and the static teaches us a lot about it, that you can absorb the sensations without being involved. So you become like just observer, and you observe it from outside. And this is what makes freediving, and especially static, connected to meditation.
Yeah,
when you do meditation, when you observe your breathing and you do not react on any sensations. Maybe you have strong pain in your back, but you don't react. You just keep observing your breath. The same you can do during the static, but during the static you do not have breath. You need to find some work for your brain, let's say, make it busy, but do not. So when your mind become busy, you can keep it busy and it will not react on this irritating symptoms or painful symptoms or whatever.
Yeah, so it's like a separation, as if you've got an observer in your mind. You're also aware of the feeling, but the feeling is not controlling. It's not saying, hey, look, because pain's a sign for the general individual. It's like, okay, you need to stop what you're doing right now because there's an issue going on. But for the majority of people who can maybe suffer more, it's extending that pain, saying, hey, is the story you're living to the pain the truth, or is it just what you're accepting right now? Whereas if you've got an observer to observe the story you're actually speaking, you can then change the narrative. And then that allows you to progress with anything, really. You know, the skills that you need for freediving, the skills that you need for hard work in exercise, hard work in terms of starting a business. It's all being able to be willing to suffer. The word passion at the end of the day is derived from suffering. The passion of Christ is all about the suffering of Christ. And if you're passionate about something, you can suffer or willing to go further for that. And so I think it's the skills you're teaching there, applicable to all life.
Yeah.
You mentioned about breathing that you do before the dive, and breathing that you do after. I'm interested in delving a little bit into what you're doing there, because I know obviously there's the buildup of carbon dioxide in the body, which is causing you to ventilate, but we don't want to offload all that carbon dioxide, because then you get a false sense of security and you can have shallow water blackout and that cause issues. So what really is the I guess, in your opinion, the ideal way to breathe at the beginning of a dive?
Yeah, sure. So this is one of the basic skills, let's say, and one of the most important parts in freediving, how we prepare ourselves for the dive. And the main goal before the dive is to be completely relaxed. So the most relaxed we are in our life when we are sleeping. It should be the same state. We are just like staying in the pool or laying in the water, breathe through a snorkel, or laying on the bed, breathe through the mouth, and you try to be completely relaxed. And again, you can use any techniques which helps you to be more relaxed. It can be body scan, it can be any meditation or whatever. And we breathe normally. It's natural, normal breathing. If you feel that your breath is a little bit deeper than normal, you can a little bit extend your exhalation. Because when we extend in exhalation, we become more relaxed. And our heart rate becomes slower. So the main goal is to be completely relaxed. And usually it takes a couple of minutes for preparation to breathe normally. And when you feel that you are ready for the dive, we can do a couple of relaxed deep breaths. Again, it shouldn't be full one, it shouldn't be intense one. It's just a little bit deeper, maybe 60% from your lungs, to release a little bit excess CO2 if we have it. And then just one deep final breath, and we dive down. And this is it. And as more experienced you are, as less you need this preparational breaths. Let's say most of the top athletes, when you check video from competitions, they don't do any preparational breaths. They just play, breathe. It looks like they're dead for a few minutes, and then one final breath, and then go down. As you told, we want carbon dioxide. We don't want to cheat our body, and this is one of the big mistakes what people do. They do hyperventilation. They breathe too much, so they release carbon dioxide from the body. And on one hand, it's good. It means you can hold the breath longer. But on the other hand, it becomes too dangerous, because the urge to breathe will come too late. And also, it's related to a lot of physiological changes in our body, so like Bohr effect, the oxygen, we keep it in the blood, we don't release it to the cells, and cerebral vasoconstriction when we have less blood to the brain, and so on. So hyperventilation doesn't give any advantages for freediving, and this is why it has only danger, especially for beginners.
Yeah.
This is why we really focus on it. And we always observe how people breathe and encourage them to don't breathe too much. To work on relaxation instead of doing any manipulation with breathing. So this is regarding preparational breath. And when you return back after the dive, we do recovery breathing. The idea of recovery breathing that you do fast, forceful inhale, and then there are two approaches. One, you do short breath hold, like 2-3 seconds, and then passive exhale to the half lungs. So half lungs always should be with the air. It looks like
1 minute.
so we create this extra pressure, little bit extra pressure in the lungs, and it helps oxygen to go faster to the blood, and it helps us to recover faster. And the other approach is similar but has small difference. We don't do a breath hold, but when we exhale, we create little bit resistance with the lips. So
Purse. With a purse.
the same idea, we create little bit extra pressure in the lungs, but without this holding. We just, by creating resistance, we
dilating the
little bit
alveoli into thoracic pressure, so the alveoli a little bit more expanded so they can get the air in there faster.
Sure. And usually we take 4 or 5 recovery breaths, and it's enough to be completely recovered. And recovery breath should be the automatic reflex. Doesn't matter how deep you were diving. When you come back, first thing always should be recovery breathing. So it should be really like a habit, and you don't. We need it again regarding safety. If you are in, let's say, close to your limit, you don't need to think about it. You come up, and your body will do it automatically. You don't need to use your attention to think what I have to do. So, and quite often it becomes the habit. Recently I had funny situation in the pool. I showed guys how to do no hinge, how to move the legs, and I was swimming on the surface with a snorkel, just showed them the movement of the legs. And then I sent to the bottom of the pool, come up, remove snorkel from the mouth, and started to do recovery breath. Just because in my head, when I look at the students and they come up from the water, I have to do recovery breath.
Yeah.
And I even didn't think about it, and everyone started laughing and like,
what are you doing?
And only after I recognized that something is wrong. I don't need to do it. I was breathing through the circle. So it means it's good. It becomes really the reflex, and I don't need to think about it. It just happens.
So when you see people who are doing free dive records and they're really pushing, I think they're like pushing over 100 meters now, aren't they? Some of the divers, when they're coming back up, are they getting to the point where they are blacking out, or do they know they're safe? Like, are they how far are they pushing their bodies?
Let's say regarding blackout, I always tell that what we are doing here, this is recreational freediving. And in recreational freediving, blackout is very, very, very rare. If you follow the rules, if you do everything properly, like don't hyperventilate, don't push the limits, and so on, you're always safe. I personally never had blackout. I love myself too much. I need my brain. At the end of the day, it's all about your priorities.
Of course.
What is more important for you, the numbers or your own health, let's say. In competitions, this is a different story, because in competitions, people are really pushing the limits. They're going beyond the limits or close to the limits, and also there is a stress from competition itself, or some stress from environment, maybe too cold water or whatever. And of course, blackouts happen, and there is big team of safety who always provide. We always meet divers on one side of the dive, and we come together to the surface. And mostly, let's say, if blackout or samba, loss of motor control, if it happens on the surface. There is much more chance. So as closer we are to the surface, is more chance. And this is again the importance of recovery breathing, because we need to recover our oxygen level as fast as possible. Even we start to breathe, it takes some time for oxygen to come to the brain. So this is why recovery breathing is so important to
speed up the process.
To force this recovery. it can happen under the water in case person really push him or herself too much. And in that case, they have safety divers who bring them to the surface, who wake them up. Usually, if they work fast and if everything was done properly, in few seconds, person will wake up and
back to normal again.
What happens?
Yeah, didn't even realise.
I fuck up my dive.
Yeah.
And this is it.
Yeah.
So in all freedivers competition history, it was maybe just a couple of blackouts deeper than, let's say, 30 meters, when people really push themselves too much. Usually it happens very close to the surface or already on the surface.
I just want to delve into what sort of techniques would you use when people want to go a bit deeper? So if they want to start going past 20, 30 meters, you said that's when you have to delve into more advanced techniques. What sort of stuff do you do there? And is there any focus on particular techniques that you use to build tolerance to CO2?
Actually, let's say when we speak about deep diving, we have always three limitations. First one, it will be breath hold ability itself, and breath hold abilities you can train even on the surface. You even don't need to go to the water, you can do static, or you can do some apnea cycling or apnea walking, whatever. And the second limitation, it will be equalization, and there are a lot of troubles and difficulties connected to equalization. Probably for most of the people, this is the main issue. And the last one, but not the least one, the most important one regarding the physical health, it will be the flexibility of the chest and the flexibility of the lung tissues. Because for deep diving, one of the most common injuries, it will be lung squeeze, when we injure our lung tissue. And there are different reasons of that. It can be lack of relaxation, or too strong contractions, or not enough flexibility in the chest, or just lack of adaptation. So we need time to involve our dive reflex, to train it, and so on. And why I tell that up to 30 meters is safe and it's possible for everyone, because for normal people, we reach our residuum volume on about 30 meters. So our residuum volume, it's about 1/4 of our total lung capacity.
Yeah.
And when you reach your residuum volume, your lungs cannot be compressed anymore.
Yeah.
They can be, it can be injured. This is why
collapse,
we need to
right?
train our dive reflex, because one part of dive reflex, it's called blood shift. So when we start to go deeper than 30 meters, the blood from the core goes to the lungs, and our lungs like swelling by blood, and blood protects our lungs from squeezing.
Yeah.
This is why people can dive up to 200 meters, and if you calculate the pressure, their lungs should be like an apple. Smaller, but it don't become as small, because the blood come inside the lungs and protect the lungs from the squeezing.
Yeah.
And this is one of the most important things which we have to train. We have to train our flexibility, and we have to train our dive reflex to be able to handle the pressure when we start to go deeper than 30-40 meters.
Yep. So how do you is that you training that in the water, or you're training that outside? Because I know obviously when we just did that breath work at the end of the session there, we were doing that blue all the way out, and then we're doing the vacuum.
Yeah, first thing we do a lot of stretching, and especially stretching for the chest area and stretching with empty lungs. So as I told you, diaphragm can be much more flexible, and we have to work a lot on flexibility in our diaphragm, flexibility of our intercostal muscles. So our lungs, actually, they are very flexible. The main limitation, the chest. So we need to make our chest flexible.
The ribs, spine,
backside, especially this area between shoulders blades. It's very difficult, even with yoga, it's very difficult to get access to that area and to stretch that area. This is why we also use some props to open the backside of the chest.
I had a lady called Barbara Tanzer on my podcast probably a couple of episodes before, and we were talking about rib mobility, and one of the things you was talking about is we don't really think about the back of our ribs, like especially in that area you're talking about. It's because we don't really have much sensation of even being able to feel that area, because there's not necessarily a need to. What you're saying, like, obviously one of the things that we need to do, and just also this is important for athletes, or they're starting to look at this athletes, and the mobility of the back of the ribs, or the ribs in general, to be able to expand your lungs and be able to breathe more efficiently, utilizing less energy, so you can probably use more blood flow to the legs or the working muscles. But so the techniques you use is in using props in yoga, such as rollers and things like that.
Yeah. Some yoga props and just typical, let's say, yoga asanas, which working on flexibility on the chest. Chest opening, some back bending, twisting, and so on. And of course, also pranayamas and some breathing exercises with Uddiyana bandha, some specific stretching for like empty lung stretching.
Yeah.
So we can, here on dry land, we can simulate the deep diving.
Okay.
We can simulate what happens there, and we can do this stretching.
Yeah.
The other direction which we have to work, it is breath hold itself, and on this level we add empty lungs breath hold. So for beginners, let's say there is no any sense to do empty lungs breath hold, but when we start to go deeper, we need to work on our hypoxia, and also again we can, with empty lungs, we will become much closer to that state which we have under the water. When we dive down, after 10 meters your lungs already compressed, and there is no full lungs breath hold anymore. And so we can do some empty lungs breath holds, and also we learn how to handle contractions and how to relax contractions. Ideally, to postpone contractions at all. Because in my opinion, in my own experience, contractions are at the depth one of the main reason of squeeze. And it's one of the main danger. So in my personal diving, I never dive deep with contractions. I know people who can dive really deep, especially when they dive in difficult conditions in cold water and so on. But
as in, if you notice that you're getting them earlier on in early dives, you just don't. Okay. So as soon as you get contractions, you'll just come back up again.
Yeah, but this is my own approach.
Yeah.
Because I noticed after some exploration, I discovered that for me this is the main reason of interest. So I always avoid, and I always suggest students always to avoid any contractions. And we can do it. There are some dry exercises, empty lungs breath holds, to avoid contractions and to postpone them. And the last part, it has to be done in the water. This is adaptation itself. So we need to do dives, and the progress should be very slow, especially when we start to go deeper than residuum volume again. We progress very slow. We add 1-2 meters. Only.
Okay.
Let's say you dive to 35 meters, you repeat it a few times, few sessions maybe. And when you understand, okay, this is my confident depth, you can add 1-2 meters. And then you repeat it again a few times. And then you add 1 more meter. And it should be done very consciously, because when you learn proper equalization techniques, when you work a lot on your breath hold abilities, you can easily dive, let's say, to 40, 50, 60 meters, and it will be enough breath hold probably to do there. But you have to stop yourself using your mind and not allow yourself to go deeper, because you know it will be injured.
Again,
I
that's...
I can dive to 70, 80 meters, but to go to that state, I need maybe 1 month training.
Yeah.
If I will go and do it now, I will kill myself.
Yeah. Again, it's that sort of thing of not allowing the ego to take over. It's okay, well, being the observer, okay, well, actually knowing this is the practice, this is what I need to do, rather than saying, it's like someone in the gym. Often you see people who, very beginning in the gym, they'll try and lift as heavy weights as possible, and I can lift this, I can lift that, and they get an injury 2 weeks later.
In freediving, it can be a little bit different, because let's say for beginners, the main limitation will be equalization.
Equalization. Okay.
They cannot, if they don't master their equalization,
Yeah.
they couldn't dive deeper than maybe 25, 30, 35 meters.
Mm.
It will limit them. But as soon as they become a little bit more experienced and they learn more advanced techniques of equalization,
Yeah.
they have endless potential.
Yeah.
They can go really deep because they learn the techniques which top athletes use.
Yeah, okay.
And this is where they put themselves in risk, and this is where they have to use the mind. And
Yeah, okay, yeah. So how like I obviously have done an advanced scuba diving course, and I had no issues with equalising when you got continuous air going through. It was just easy just to relax, swallow, or just do this. But like I say, I blew my sinuses trying to get down to 10 meters because I descended too fast and I couldn't equalise and I forced it. So how do they differ in terms of the actual techniques?
It's easy in scuba diving. Equalization is very simple.
Yeah.
You just pitch the nose, blow to the nose, and you're done. Because you go fit first, and you go very slow,
Yeah.
and you have tank.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a lot of air, and you can go as slow as you can,
Yeah.
as you want. When we do free diving, we go head down. We go much faster,
Yeah.
and there are few issues appear. First one is just physics, because when you go head down, you have less air in your sinuses, so there is just less pressure, because pressure is going to the lungs,
Mm-hmm.
upside down, and it's just like physics works like this. It's more difficult to equalize. Because when you go feet first, air goes up by itself, and it equalizes by itself. And you can go
Of
very
course.
slow,
Yes.
you have time. When you kick, for example, or even pull in the rope, you're going much faster,
Yeah.
and you need to be able to equalize. But there are also some anatomical or physiological issues, let's say, because we have soft pellets. This is like a door between your nasal cavity and mouth cavity. And for a lot of people, the soft pellet can be the issue, especially if they have tension, if they have fear, because soft pellet, it is like a protection mechanism for us. Let's say when you do surfing, you can have a lot of water inside your
Sinuses.
but you don't have water inside the mouth. This is because of soft pellet. Soft pellet close and isolates your nasal cavity and mouth cavity.
Yep.
And in my experience, I work a lot with surfers. Most of the surfers, they have difficulty with equalization. Just naturally, they used to close the soft pellet. Because and swimmers, professional swimmers, they also can have problems with equalization because they naturally close the soft pellet.
Because they're breathing through their mouth all the time. So they don't want to breathe.
And
Yeah.
they need to reteach the body, and they need to learn how to manage the soft pellet.
Yeah,
And
okay.
actually we can train it. There are
Yep.
some funny exercises with balloon, and you can feel your soft pellet, like I move my finger,
Yep.
same I can move my soft pellet. But some people, they can be super relaxed, they can be like very natural in the water, but anatomically they have very big soft pellet and very heavy soft pellet. And as soon as they go head down, soft pellet just flows
It floats up.
by gravity force.
Yeah.
And for
So-
them it can be again very difficult to open it. Because it doesn't matter what kind of technique do you use, if this door closed, you can push the air, you can blow, you can do whatever you want. But air will not come to your nasal cavity because the door is closed.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's very funny when people sit in here and put balloon in the nostril and do some funny exercises, lift tongue, lift balloon, put balloon to the mouth, deflate to the nose, put balloon to the nose, deflate to the mouth, and there are plenty of different exercises. But idea of all of them to teach the soft pellet
Yeah.
to be able to open it.
Yeah. So you're opening your epiglottis, opening and closing your epiglottis, and using
No,
your,
glottis is here. We
Yeah.
don't use epiglottis.
Yeah.
We use glottis.
yeah.
And soft pellet.
It's
so
the back of your
glottis,
tongue.
One door is here,
Yeah.
which separate your lower
Yeah.
airways and your mouth.
Yeah.
And soft pellet, it is separating your nasal cavity and mouth cavity.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's
Because
different organs.
what I'm thinking here is I used to work in the sleep industry, and there's an issue called obstructive sleep apnea, and it's all to do with the soft palate falling back and closing off the airways, and people struggle to breathe during their sleep.
Actually, snoring, this is moving
Yeah.
of soft pellet as well.
Yeah.
This is moving of soft pellet.
And I'm wondering, with the exercises that you teach people to recognise their soft palate and to be able to manipulate that would be able to then transfer to helping people with sleep apnea and snoring, to be able to kind of like, okay, well, if I can consciously realize that's there at night time, I might be able to, before I fall asleep, move my soft palate in a certain way. It's just a thought that came to my mind when you were mentioning all that then.
Yeah, maybe. I had few students with really heavy soft palate,
Yeah.
and even here on dry land, as soon as they start to bend down and head like going down from horizontal to vertical position, equalization doesn't work, even here on dry land.
Yeah, okay.
Just because soft palate close everything, and it took a really long time for them, like for weeks, to train in the water, here this balloon, to manage to work with soft palate and to like manipulate it.
Yeah. So that's all the sort of stuff you do here at Freedive Nusa. So when did you opened here? 7 years ago?
No, we came here in December 2016.
Okay, so yeah, 5 years ago. Yeah, and obviously at the moment it's a bit quiet because there's not many people, tourists and people coming into Indonesia. But when it's busy, I've heard the roads down here are pretty much jam packed when it's full with tourists. So what would a typical day look like for yourself, taking tourists out, training them?
No, actually, yeah. Before quarantine started, I had 4 more instructors here, and we were quite busy. We had a lot of people, and we couldn't. It was really busy and good. And last year, when everything started, it was like switched off, and everything becomes dead. Now I'm only one here because everyone left. But typical day here, we have quite intense day during the training because like people, they have a limited time, and usually basic course is 2.5 days.
Mm-hmm.
And we meet here at 8 o'clock. We do some theory in the classroom, dry exercises in the classroom, and then if it is first day it will be static in the pool, or if it is second day it will be dynamic in confined water in front of the school. We don't have long pool here, so we use confined water for dynamic, for swimming from distance under the water. And then we have break, and again some theory, and we go by boat to open water, and we do deep session in the open water. Usually it takes about a couple of hours. We just drift in open ocean, deep blue, mapping around, both follow us, and then normally at the end of the session we come to the reef, to the shallower water, and we do some fun diving on the reef. Here all the North Coast,
it's beautiful.
We see turtles and a lot of fish.
I was out the other day for about 3 hours, and we just dived along here, and then we went down to Blue Corner, and we were at Toyopaka, around that area. And it was like, with scuba diving, because my air consumption is terrible because I've only just started doing it, I'm only diving maybe 30 to 35 minutes, but with free diving you can come down, or you can float along the top, along the drift. I enjoy just being on the drift and just looking down, and probably sort of like 8 turtles, like, barbel rays, like all the different types of fish. It was a beautiful experience. I didn't get bored at all.
Yeah, the drift diving, one of the highlights of Nusa Penida. I always like it, and you just dive down and you really fly, and you do nothing. You come to neutral buoyancy, like 10-12 meters, and then you can fly along these corals, and it's I like it.
Yeah, it was fantastic. So then, in terms of free diving stages, obviously you do SSI. Is there more than? Is it just SSI that does free diving, or is there
we do
multiple?
SSI and Molchanovs. Last year, or more than a year, last 1.5 years, we moved mostly to Molchanovs courses.
Okay.
And we also make courses longer.
And he's the world record holder, multiple world records, isn't it? Alexei Molchanov.
Yeah, I can tell that like nowadays Molchanovs is the most modern one and the most active developing. It's still developing. There are new changes all the time, but the team is the educational team.
It's a relatively new sport, really, though, isn't it? In general things.
Yeah.
So what sort of stages are there, and what do you recommend people do if they kind of want to get into freediving?
No, actually, there are different systems, but the physics law, the physiology is the same.
Yeah.
So there are some different requirements, different teaching materials, but the idea is almost the same. And mostly the basic course in most of the schools, it takes 2 days. We do it in 3 days because we, in our conditions and for our students, we recognize that 2 days is not enough for many people. And we add one more extra open water session. Even it can be maybe not good regarding business side, but it's very good regarding experience and regarding quality of the teaching. So we changed to like 1.5 year. We changed, and the basic course now it takes 2.5 days for us. And like for basic course, everyone can apply. You don't need any previous experience. You just need to swim, be able to swim, let's say, and nothing else. And if there is no difficulties with equalization, most of the people in these 2-3 days, they're able to dive up to 15-20 meters. So the main issue is always equalization.
Yeah.
And but even if they have issues with going head down, they can go tiptoes, pulling the rope, and so on. Or it can be also some strong fears, because with our positioning and our approach, we have a lot of people who have a lot of fear connected to the water. And they come and surfers, for example, if they had some strong wipeout and they got scared, and they come to us and they want to manage it somehow, and they believe that freediving can help, and it helps a lot of people. Even they couldn't equalize maybe, but this experience of breath holding, it helps a lot. We work a lot with surfers here. Probably this is one of the majority of the students are surfers.
So like wipeout training, apnea sort of training.
Yeah, we have even separate course. It's called Freediving for Surfers.
Okay.
To be honest, it's just the same basic course.
Yeah.
With little bit different focuses. We less focused on requirements and technique. We want more focused on breath holding and on mental state.
Yeah.
On psychology of breath holding, and on differences between freediving and surfing, because it's completely opposite activities, let's say. And then after basic course, if people want to continue, they can come to advanced course, level 2 or wave 2, and it takes 3-4 days. But it makes sense to go there when you're already confidently and comfortably diving up to 18-20 meters. So for most of the people after basic course, they need some extra training. Or also, it's quite often we get requests from people like, oh, I never did any course, but I have my own experience with spearfishing or freediving. Can I join straight to level 2 course? I don't want to do basic and so on. And I always explain them that you need to know the basics. On basic course, you get the foundations. How to breathe properly, how to equalize properly, all the foundations. How to deal with blackout, how to avoid blackout. And just if we skip the knowledge, you need to know how to behave on the buoy. You need to know how to dive along the rope up to 18-20 meters. If you have all these knowledges and skills, you can easily go for level 2 course. And on level 2 course, we are going deeper. It's up to 30 meters. We started to work on free falling. So from certain depth, after about 50 meters, we just start falling down without any
negative
effort.
buoyancy.
We just like fly into the depth. And for me personally, it's one of the most exciting feelings during freediving, when you kick and then just relaxing and falling down without anything. But you need to learn how to do it properly, how to position the body, how to relax, and so on. And in Molchanovs, for example, also we work on no fins technique. Molchanovs is the only system which makes no fins part of typical courses. In SSI, for example, there is specialty course about dolphins,
Yep.
but it's not part of the normal courses. And in any other system, they don't really teach dolphins so much. And for many people, dolphins is the biggest issue in advanced course. If they never did it, because you need to have good flexibility in the hips,
Yeah.
in the shoulders, and you need to have good coordination. And in my experience, like probably it is, I can tell on basic course the equalization is the main issue. On level 2 course, the no fins the main issue for many people.
I'd be screwed. My shoulders and my hips. Spent 15 years as sat at a desk. 16 years training weights.
Yeah. This is why I told today that when we do yoga and some stretching, we mostly focus on chest opening and on hips opening. These are like two main areas which we have to work on.
Yeah. And that's for the majority of people in modern day society, right? We're all just sat down at desks. Like, I think I wrote an article like "What is health?" the other day and put it on my blog on my website. And one of the things was, movement, being able to move functionally to be able to go through your day, like being able to pick up your child without being concerned about hurting your back, or being able to sit like this for more than 10 minutes without going, it's painful. That to me is just what health should be. It's a part of it, and we have so many people who can't even do that sort of stuff nowadays because of the likes of sat in buildings and just being still for 8 hours a day.
And after this level 2 course, the next step is level 3 course, which is already kind of semi-professional, I can tell, because we start to go deeper than residual volume, and it takes more preparation and longer time. I don't really like to teach level 3 course itself, because it's possible to teach it in 6-7 days, but for most of the people it's not enough. It's too short time. So instead of this short course, we offer here 1 month internship, 1 month master course, and most of the schools they offer the same. And this master course will include level 3 course plus a lot of extra training, and it is really kind of complete program. And during master course, it's not short course when people just the customers, they become part of the team. We train together, they do a lot of cross training. You've seen we do interval training here, we do gym, we do yoga, we do swimming. So like almost every day they do some training. We need to have rest for diving for sure. Normal schedule, like 2-3 days diving, 1 day rest.
Yep.
So we need to have rest from breath holding, from hypoxia.
Yeah, dangerous to the brain and to the body. Yeah.
1-2 days per week should be no breath hold at all.
Yeah.
To give time for body to recover. But it is really comprehensive and big course. And usually after master course, people are ready for instructor course. So master course can be good preparation for instructor course. And in master course, you can be really focused on your own performance and like do all the performances. Because if you wanna make a next step and become professional and become an instructor, the focus will be changed. You will not be focused on your own performance anymore. You will be focused on your instructor and on your students. And this is one of the problems for many instructors. When you are working in busy school and you have a lot of students, you usually don't have time for your own training, and it's difficult to find motivation, to find the power to do your own training. And I know I have few friends who is like really good competitors, and they were working in the school, but for their own training, they make kind of long holidays, maybe a couple of months, go in another school, pay them money, and do
teach
training
you,
their base, just to be away from the teaching.
Have the accountability and just be like, right, I'm not doing any of this. Like, I literally need to get into my own zone now, because it's if you want to be a high level freediver, it's commitment, right? And if you want to be a good instructor, it's commitment to being a good instructor at the same time.
So for let's say if you speak about student courses, for most of the systems they have these 3 levels, and they dive up to 40 meters. the Molchanovs is the only teacher which have also level 4, which is developed more for competitors. So it's focused a lot on deep diving, on some techniques which is really used by competitors and so on, and not so much instructors who can teach even this wave 4 course. I can teach wave 4, and also I'm instructor trainer, so the next step for people, if they want to be professionals, it can be instructor course. If they want to make freediving as their profession, or for some people it can be just like one more achievement.
It's next goal.
I can tell about me when I did my instructor course. I didn't want to become a real instructor. If like 8 years ago, if someone told me I will be full-time instructor, I could laugh like, come on, I'm a computer engineer. I help people. I did it just for myself, to share my passion with friends, with my wife, and then because we were working remotely, we were traveling around. We just started to organize some freedive trips or freedive camps. We came, I don't know, to the Philippines, and we call all the friends like, oh guys, we're gonna stay 1 month in Philippines, or we're gonna stay 2 months in Dahab. Come and dive with us. And first time I was teaching even for free or for some small money. It was not something like serious for me. I had other way for income, and it was really like sharing the passion. And then at some point I understood that I like it more and more, and in 2015 I understood like I want to change. I don't want to have office. I don't want to spend like 8-10 hours in front of the computer anymore. I prefer to have my office in the sea. And like,
it's beautiful to see what you've created here, from going from a computer, from an engineer to this. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, finally, when we opened the school, I started to spend again a lot of time in front of the computer.
Yeah, of course.
All the marketing I'm doing, and all the even website I created by myself. I still have a lot of background from IT. And all the computer work I do by myself. And to make everyone busy, to make everything alive, I have to spend a lot of time in front of the computer, and I can tell I spend more time there, and if you compare with time in the ocean in the classroom.
So just to wrap up then, so if anyone in future, when you're allowed to open up and people can come down to Nusa Penida and see you, how do they get hold of you and get in touch to book courses or anything like that?
We have our website, freedivenusa.com. We have Instagram, Freedive Nusa, Facebook, Freedive Nusa. So if you search Freedive Nusa, you can easily find us. There is no problem. There is on website and on Instagram, there is WhatsApp number.
I'll put that all in the show notes so people can click on it and find them.
Yeah, it's easy, and we opened and very easy to reach, and usually I'm very fast with answering.
And the kombucha here is great as well.
Yeah, kombucha and water kefir and a lot of other stuff.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your time and for sharing your knowledge and sharing your yoga and allowing us to come to this beautiful space. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting.